Well, the rumor is that he borrowed $4 million from Carlo Gambino. I can't believe that that actually happened. Simply because he and being my father and Carlo Gambino did not get along very well. I never even thought to question that with Vincent Gigante or Dominic Alongi or Mario Gigante. I spoke to all three of them. Uh, I never got to speak to Benny Squint. I never saw him or heard from him after my father's demise. Uh, but even in the conversations that I had with these other three fellas, I never even dreamt of questioning that because I knew better.
Right,
I also knew that he was not involved with drugs,
right.
and it was a foregone conclusion. As I said in the book, 3 months before this happened, before he was killed, he sat me down and told me that he was being framed for a drug deal. So, if you piece all these little things together, uh, it all comes back to Gambino.
You mentioned that you never saw Benny Squint again, but you did have some dealings with Benny. You talk about how you would see him at the hospital. He came and visited your dad at the hospital, and just talk about your dealings with Benny Squint.
In 1968, when my father had his first heart attack, and it was a major heart attack, it was a serious myocardial infarction with a lot of damage. He was in Holy Name Hospital in Teaneck, New Jersey, for about a month. And every day, Benny would come up to see him. Uh, I don't know that they got into any heavy discussions about anything else other than his health, which was a serious problem at the time. Whenever I saw Benny up there, he was very cordial and friendly to me. Uh, he had no reason not to be. I was always respectful of him. And after seeing him many other times beforehand, uh, I considered him to be someone that I should respect. And our relationship was always an arm's length one, if you will. We never socialized or anything like that. Uh, but after my father was killed, I never heard from him, never saw him. He never offered condolences to my mother. It's kind of disappointing when he's coming to for years. He came to my father's apartment or home every week. They would huddle. They would have their little whispering conversations. But my mother would make him a cup of coffee, uh, and she was always polite to him. You would think that he would at least have sent condolences. After my father was gone, in light conversation with my uncle Pat, uh, he told me, he says, I was in the room with Vito and Benny when Vito made Benny the boss just before he went to jail. That was Vito going to jail. Every week, Benny used to come to my father's home or apartment. They'd spend an hour or two together and he'd leave. And when he left, my father would help him put his coat on. Now, for my father to do that with somebody else, it indicated that this was someone that he needed to show respect to. So my uncle used to tell my father, if you think that you're the boss, what is Benny? You
Right,
think Benny's the consigliere? No, Benny is the boss. You are the capo regime. If he's not your boss, why do you help him put his coat on when he leaves your house at night?
right, right.
And my father used to say, "Nah, just being nice to the guy. That's all." But my
And that,
father always seemed to think that he was the boss.
now let's talk
He may
about
have been the street boss. He may have been the front boss, but Benny was the boss in the background.
Now let's talk about that. You bring up a great thing that we also talk about in the book, the front boss, and that was a distinctive thing that happened only in the Genovese family. And just explain what the front boss was and why it was set up.
Vito had set that up when he before he went to jail, so that there was somebody out front. He may have gotten uh, the people under him, or anybody else would have recognized him as the boss, not knowing who the real boss was. Now, they call him a street boss, they call him a front boss, they call him an underboss, whatever you call him. He certainly is a boss, but he's not the boss. He's got to answer to somebody else. The real boss, he stays in the background. It's like protecting the queen bee in the hive.
Right.
Uh, Everybody moves around the queen bee and protects her from any outside influences. And that's what a street boss does,
Do
or a
you
front boss.
do you feel that your dad was the front boss for Benny Squint?
Absolutely. I believe that Benny was the boss. I believe what my uncle told me was absolute truth. I believe that for my father to show him the kind of respect that he did, he had to be the boss. My father did not take a back seat to very many people.
There's probably maybe a handful of people alive who even ever met Benny Squint.
Uh, when I first met Benny, my father and mother had built a house in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, and the house was just about ready to be moved into uh, when Dad actually probably asked Benny if he knew a good appliance place where he could go and pick out the refrigerators, the washer and dryers, the televisions. Uh, Benny says, "Yeah, I got somebody in Harlem." So I went with them to this appliance place. Benny, I think, went in his own car and met us there. My father and mother picked out all the appliances and televisions that they needed or wanted. And when my father went to pay for it all, Benny stopped him and he says, "No, it's all on me." He says, "This is my party." He says, "I'll pay for all of this." And my father just kind of uh, gave him an embarrassed look, like, you don't have to do that. I'll take care of it. But Benny insisted on paying for everything, and he did.
Okay. Your father seemed to, just going by some of the other FBI files I looked at, your father seemed to like Benny Squint. He was complimentary of him in the FBI files.
Yes, he did like him, and he respected him. Evidently, Benny went back a long way with not only with Vito, but with Lucky, with Charlie. Uh, I've read somewhere where Benny lived at the Waldorf Astoria with Charlie. Maybe as a bodyguard or a protector of some sort.
Right.
But that was going back a long ways. That was going back into the 30s
Wow. Wow.
when Charlie was living at the Waldorf Astoria.